All right, it's been over a year. USA Swimming really blew it with their last hire. We've been in limbo, we've been in flux. This is their shot at redemption. We don't need buzzwords, we need trust, and it's time for Kevin Ring to step up to the plate. Welcome back to the Swimmingly Show. I'm Charlie Houchin, Olympic gold medalist and CEO.
What's up? I'm Hayes Johnson, president of Swimmingly. We've been through every level of the sport, from summer league swimming, NCAA champions to the Olympic Games. And today we work with over 1,000 teams to make swim meets more fun, more simple, all by using the device in your pocket.
So if you're a parent, swim parent, coach, or swimmer that wants to grow the sport and are passionate about it and get better, today, this one is for you. We're diving into one of the biggest stories in the swimming world right now. USA Swimming officially naming Kevin Ring from PGA of America as our new president and CEO.
Let's get into it. Charlie. We're less than 3 years out from the 2028 LA Olympics.
That's right.
On home soil. Let's go. Pumped about that. It's the biggest moment for American swimming in over a decade, well over a decade. And why is leadership at this moment so critical?
Well, because it's important at any time, especially when you're 3 years out of hosting the LA Olympics on your soil. It's more than just medals. There's a spotlight on what's going on. One of the biggest national governing bodies, USA Swimming, is going to be under the spotlight in LA. And whoever is at the helm isn't just going to steer the elite side, but they're going to set the tone for the entire sport. We have this very small window every 4 years where everyone's actually watching the sport. And whether we like that or not, that is our moment. And we're either going to squander it or we're going to really capitalize on it. And I will say the elite side, we're going to get into this part. I'm not concerned about the athletes, and I'm not concerned about the elite coaches guiding those athletes. They're sort of secondary, they're primary in my thoughts, but I don't think that's where the big concern lies. I think those athletes are going to perform incredibly well in LA, and I think the coaches are going to help guide them and get them there. What I am watching is the leadership and whether we're going to capitalize as a sport on this opportunity, or the coaches and the swimmers that represent us in that small window simply going to do that and do that well in spite of the chaos that's going on in the rest of the sport.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely dive into that more. And so instead of hiring a swimming insider, Charlie, they went with Kevin Ring, a guy from the commercial golf world. No real background in swimming at all. Pretty bold, I would say. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, hiring, let's call him what it is. It's an outsider. I think USA Swimming has been doing things that don't work. And all you have to do is look at the results we've been getting for the last 20 years. I think the governance structure is outdated with the LSCs. I think the folks at the grassroots lack the guidance from the people at the top. And I think the people at the top lack the infrastructure and plan to guide the people at the grassroots. This is why you end up with this confederation of coaches that are kind of doing it against all odds. And this person's doing it in a very disparate way from that person. And you want to have a collection of ideas. You want to have a diversity of ideas to help make the sport and teams better. But they're coming at it from this totally confederation infrastructure where it's just every man, every team for himself, every coach for himself. And that's because the people at the top are completely disconnected to the grassroots. And that's because they don't have any infrastructure or plan that's going to help guide those people. So I think generally speaking, the athletes are well coached and nurtured in their programs. And I think USA Swimming can always better support the elite athlete. But I think at this moment in time, after 20 years of growth stagnation, it's time to focus on building the base. One of the goals that's been listed here, looking at my notes, is increase membership growth and revenue. And I think that's good. But what I would tell Kevin if he was talking to us right now is that revenue can only grow because of membership in USA Swimming. There is not a unicorn endorsement or sponsorship or vendor relationship out there that you had with Rolex at PGA of America. It doesn't exist in our sport yet. What you need to do is get serious about membership growth because we're driven by that singularity in revenue. That's the membership. So I think elite level thinking, if you will, means building the base. So even more elite athletes are going to rise out of an environment like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a bunch of these articles coming out, and one of the things that he kept saying was his goal is to listen, learn, and collaborate with athletes, coaches, clubs, and partners, which, that's his job. I think he's going to do that really well. I think, do you think it matters that he really hasn't been a part of the swimming world? I mean, how much of that do you think really matters as a CEO, especially coming into the NGB? Is that a strength or a liability?
Yeah, I think it's a strength. The reason that it's going to get confused or can is because I think people inside the sport see an outsider and they see it as a weakness. And sometimes we need to take off the ego hat and appreciate that the guy that was the president of PGA of America, an organization that's leaps and bounds beyond USA Swimming, can probably bring, I'm being sarcastic, a lot of leadership and assets to the sport. So I see the outsider perspective as a strength if executed right. Let me give you an example. Tim Henchey, who was our previous CEO, was an outsider to the sport, professionally speaking. Now he was a passionate swimmer himself, but his experience came from other sports at the corporate level. The first thing that he did, and this is why this listening sounds like a little bit of a corporate buzzword. Tim said the same thing, and he meant it. And he went through this period, this chapter. If you followed Tim at USA Swimming as we did, where he really went around listening on the tour to talk with coaches to figure out what's working and what's not, what makes the sport tick. And I think the people inside the sport saw that as paralysis. And I think they saw it as a weakness because he wasn't doing stuff. He wasn't getting stuff done. When the reality was his job, aside from Olympic trials and executing on that, really consisted of two things. Number one, it was listening and going around and doing the listening tour, and also dealing with the scandal and the lawsuits and all of the stuff where he was appearing before Congress. And that took a lot of the man's time. So if Kevin was sitting here again, what I would say to him, the listening tour is good. It's admirable, but I would just caution that people inside the sport see it as a weakness and as not taking action. And as much as people are now communicating over social media as we are right now, and I know other people are, that's a quick way to get some quick information from people. So I'm glad we're here to at least, share our 2 cents with it.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the way this is going. I think Kevin will do a great job, and I'm glad they're pulling in someone outside of the sport, quite frankly. I think the biggest challenge, which it always has been, regardless of who's at the helm, is interacting and dealing with the coaches and the membership, right? So I would tell the coaches and the USA Swimming membership, just set your ego aside. Like, let this guy come in, accept the fact that just because our sport has its nuances does not mean that a guy at his level can't come in and lead this thing, because he can't.
Yeah.
These
Right.
guys just have to listen and trust that he can do his job.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Totally agree with you.
Yeah, and let's not forget. I mean, what was it, a year ago? I mean, he
Mhm.
wasn't the first choice, right? What were we dealing with a year ago, Charlie? Give the listeners a little background. I'm sure most people have heard this story.
Well, Chrissy was originally hired as for this position a year ago, and she withdrew after there were safe sport complaints. And I'm less interested in, what's happening with her, and the scandal of that. And I'm more interested in the fact that it was a complete and utter failure on the part of the board at USA Swimming, the people involved, the third party involved in the hiring process, that in the midst of trying to find the person to lead the organization, they were able to make such an embarrassing mess of what was going on. So I don't have any insider information, but that's kind of my point. Is you can sit there and you can see this just absolute banana peel slip and fall by the organization in the midst of needing the leader at this critical time, and they can't even get the freaking person hired. I mean, it's there was, and then on top of that, the lack of transparency into what was going on until a couple of weeks later, where it came out that there was a safe sport complaint. That not only was there poor communication, but there was just an intentional lack of transparency into what was going on. And I know in personal firsthand interaction with people, with multiple people on this board, that it's a complete calamity. I mean, it's an utter embarrassment. And I hope now that we have somebody hired that we can flush that out, because it's just terrible for the sport.
Yeah, why do you think it took a year?
I think it probably took a year because anybody that was at least qualified for the job looked at it and said, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I think at that point, it's less about the board and their ability to go and recruit people to apply for the job. And it's more these people that these would-be applicants are looking at this going, this organization is a complete mess. They've embarrassed themselves. And the last hire that they tried to make was, I don't want to put myself in that position. So I think, quite frankly, without them sort of realizing what they had done, they probably chased away a number of highly qualified individuals. So I feel lucky that Kevin would even consider this.
Yeah, and I mean, you would have to think and guess that a bunch of people in in the swimming world would have applied for this role, right? I mean, people
Yeah.
that are already deep in swimming.
For sure, and we do know that, and, I think there's just an incestuous nature with the sport that, you have these people that view each other, maybe rightly, maybe wrongly, as trying to climb to the top or what have you, and they don't want, the person over there to succeed, and so I think it's easy to torpedo the opportunity or the chances of somebody coming from within the sport for this particular position.
Yeah, I mean, needless to say, they're under pressure. The board is a little under pressure. So, I mean, we obviously hope this thing works out with Kevin. So, going back to Kevin, Charlie, let's break down Kevin's background a little bit. He was with the PGA of America and Legends. Primary focus was on partnerships, sponsorships, and large scale sporting events, which is kind of cool.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, he knows how to grow revenue, knows how to work with major sponsors, how to manage a big membership base. These are all things that USA Swimming has totally struggled with, and I want to see him flourish in this capacity.
Yeah, and I think just going back to it, the only I'm sure people will talk about other downsides, but the downside being there's no swim background at all. And again, like I don't know if that's a truly good or bad thing, but I think from the past it probably is a downside. There's no credibility with athletes or club coaches. There's no relationship built at all yet. So he's really starting from ground zero.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough position to be in. It's a tough position to be in. I mean, do you think he can win over this swimming or do you think he can win over this swimming community, and how long do you think it'll take?
Yeah, I mean, everything takes time, obviously. For him, it's gonna come down to patience and humility. And, if he listens to more, if he's listening to these people, if he's truly going in, boots on the ground, listening to the right people, partners with people already making an impact in the market, maybe even us at Swimmingly, these small folks over here, creating an amazing experience at the grassroots level. And if he doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, I think he really does have a shot. Like he's really got to get in there, build the relationships. Don't reinvent the wheel here. Don't do things that have been done in the past. Don't look back at other CEOs and try to do what they've done. He's really got to come in and make a difference in a different way. So if he comes in swinging with top down ideas, I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think it's truly going to land. I think he's really going to have to get in, boots on the ground, and do some good listening and learning.
So what should the focus be?
Well, you mentioned it, Charlie. Membership. I think we're always going to go back to saying it's membership. We are well aware that LA is 3 years away. Greg Meehan is the man for the job on the national team side of things. Like, you couldn't find someone better than he and Brendan Hansen on the national junior team side. Like, they truly are incredible at what they do. And you got to trust them to get these athletes up to where they need to be to compete at the highest level. But longer term, medals do not happen. They will not happen without depth in swimming. So right now, our grassroots pipeline, I would say, is pretty darn shaky. So clubs are losing swimmers, retention is garbage, meet participation is down, families are aging out, like it's just a mess. So
Yeah.
we got to get to membership.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And the thing that should be encouraging for all of us, but certainly somebody in leadership at USA Swimming, is that you can see the effect of improved grassroots building the base all the way through to elite level performance within one CEO's tenure. You can have an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old become that top elite level. Now, it doesn't happen for most people, but my point is you can make changes that affect somebody that's 8 years old going into the season today, and you can see the fruits of that labor when he or she is on the podium at a world championships or an Olympic games at age 15 or 16. We see it happen, every quad. And so we got to think about that continuity between the grassroots and the elite performance more like that, because it's totally there. Now, here's one thing that I wanted to include that I was working on. I was thinking through this while you were traveling, and that is, again, if Kevin was sitting here, one thing I was trying to sink my teeth into: what is the concrete thing that's going on with the sport of swimming, with our national governing body, that isn't necessarily obvious to somebody coming in that has tons of experience with member driven organizations. Like he's seen it all, right? So how can we help Kevin when he's seen it all in other membership driven organizations? And the answer is finding the concrete thing, not just saying, well, swimming is complex and it's nuanced and you just wouldn't understand it, and then leaving him in this vague cryptic box, right? That's not helpful for the man that's trying to lead our organization. So what I would tell him, looking at taking PGA of America and contrasting that with USA Swimming, I'm sure he's already done this, but you look at it, what may not be obvious is membership. When you break down the constituents, you have the coaches on the swimming side, you have the teams on the swimming side. Of course, you have the athletes. On the PGA of America side, of course, you can draw similar parallels. What is distinct and different about his previous tenure at that organization is the facilities. The facilities are different. If you look at USA Swimming's membership, not only are facilities missing from membership, it's categorically vacant. It doesn't exist. Here's what I mean by that. All these coach-owned programs, a lot of them are coach-owned. They don't own the facility, and so there's this disconnect. There's a link in the chain that's completely missing, and it's divorced from what's going on between USA Swimming and the coach. The coach may be running a meet at that facility. The coach may be hosting practices at that facility, maybe have been doing so for the last decade, but the facility has no relationship with USA Swimming or the sport. And a lot of times at best, they're just fostering some sort of transactional relationship because the coach is willing to lease the space from it. And it's a huge, I really wish we could talk with Kevin about this because it's an aha moment that I had that concretely could help push everything in the right direction. Now let's take real quick, and I'll pass it back to you. Let's take the non-coach driven teams, and those would be the YMCAs, the JCCs, any Parks and Rec, et cetera, that do have that facility staff and what have you that's tangentially related to the swim team. The same principle is still true for them. The YMCA branch that has the team, nothing to do with USA Swimming. Not only is it a missing link in the component between the governing body and the people, the coaches, the families, and the swimmers, but a lot of times it's a barrier between the two. And so if I was offering any advice to Kevin, unsolicited, of course, here, I would say we have the coaches that are members, we have the swimmers that are members, and that is all good. And we need to keep incubating that and fostering those relationships. That's great. And now we need to add the facilities into this. You've got to have a relationship. This is why the sport is falling apart. It's because in order to run a freaking swim meet, you need water. You need a hole in the ground, preferably with lane ropes, with a bunch of water in it. And the facilities are those people. PGA of America has membership for fill in the blank for all of the courses. It would be weird to think that the PGA of America would have no relationship with the courses where the sport of golf is played.
Right.
But in USA Swimming, there is no relationship between USA Swimming, the governing body, and the facility at which the sport is played. Kevin, you've got to fix this. As much as I can put up the red alert siren here, the facilities have to be a constituent group here. Hayes, I'm passing the ball back to you.
Yeah, I mean, that really is a good point, and I'm glad you brought this up and thought of this on my way home. I mean, when you think about it, most of these clubs are training, a lot of them are training at like Parks and Rec facilities, right? They're training at city-owned pools. So
that's right.
What can Kevin do in that scenario?
Well, I know from our experience at Swimmingly, it's the right question, that when we engage the professionals at these venues, because our relationship oftentimes is a lot tighter with the actual, the aquatics staff at that YMCA, the aquatics staff at that Parks and Rec, because of the nature of the service that we provide, I would encourage USA Swimming to do the same thing, because the reception, when you work with a professional on the other end, these are the people going to aquatics conferences, et cetera. They make their living in the sport, but they're not necessarily coaches. These people are awesome. And if USA Swimming can learn to have a relationship with the facility's aquatics director, staff members, et cetera, provide curriculum, education for those people, then we're going to start singing a tune that's going to be in sync with one another a whole lot more. Because remember, most of those facilities, that coach-owned program that's just coming in to buy, rent lane space, that relationship with that facility, it's just not there. It's transactional, or the coach may have a good relationship with the facility, but the facility is completely different than the relationship, the chain of events with USA Swimming.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a good point. Yeah, glad you brought that one up. So, going down this route a little bit more. I mean, we obviously get to work with a lot of great facilities, parks and rec facilities. Let's talk more about the youth level right now.
Mhm.
So, there are obviously programs doing amazing things at the grassroots level. You've got a million learn to swim, great learn to swim programs. You've got awesome development programs done the right way at a lot of year-round clubs actually. I mean, they're actually starting to do these development programs in a really good way. You've got amazing regional summer leagues, and then you have a lot of sports tech, swimming tech platforms modernizing the meet experience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. USA Swimming's it ignored a lot of this innovation, flat out. If Kevin can elevate, maybe partner eventually with these types of groups, it could completely reshape the entry point into the sport. And I just go back to, you don't have to do it you don't have to pick, this company over that company or even that kind of stuff. Just go to the facility level. These people have an appetite for a great relationship with national governing bodies. The clout that USA Swimming would bring into these facilities is huge. These professionals being just recognized, acknowledging these people, these aquatics directors, staff members at Parks and Rec, country clubs, etc., as being a part of the environment. Today, we've told them that they're just necessary evils to be able to provide us water. We need to bring the facility people into the ecosystem, and I really think that that's the secret linchpin that would not only help foster a great relationship between Kevin, USA Swimming, and the local facilities that, by the way, actually run the swim meets. And I think it would take the relationship between the coaches and the people boots on the ground that go to those facilities and help foster that relationship and bring this chain of events with all of the constituents together. I
Yeah.
mean, now, Kevin said we need to create, this was out of his announcement. He said we need to create deeper partnerships at every level, from local clubs to global sponsors, to grow swimming for all. And I would agree, and just really point him to that local club level. Specifically, the clubs are in, they need the support, they need the help, but the facilities that help provide the services to the clubs, I would really hone in on.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where I'm actually really hopeful with Kevin coming in. What's great about bringing in a guy that hasn't touched the swimming world, hasn't been involved in it, he is not going to be married at all to the old school swimming politics that has plagued our sport for so long, right? So he could actually come in with fresh perspective, maybe obviously things he's done in the golf world, and build bridges with the people doing the work at the grassroots level. But he's got to get in the weeds. He's got to build those relationships. He's got to start those relationships and not just stay on the elite performance track, which, we've been stuck in for a while.
Yeah. So on that note, you worked obviously with a lot of grassroots programs, summer, year-round clubs. What's the one thing you wish USA Swimming understood about that better?
Well, I think they understand it. They're just not taking action. I mean, how many times have we spoken with folks at USA Swimming and talked about the problem? How hard is it to keep kids in this sport?
Yeah.
I mean, truly, they say they know this, but nothing has been done about it, between burnout, bad experiences, all those things. How many times have we said that, Charlie? How many times have we sat in a room and literally talked about this same thing and tried to come up with ways with them to help grow the sport? We have to have innovation at the bottom just as much as we need the excellence at the top, flat out. I mean, they have got to start focusing on the grassroots level. They say they will, they've said they will forever. They just don't.
I remember one of our most recent conversations with a tenured USA Swimming staff member. We were sitting there and complacency was the theme. This person, unsolicited, we're having this conversation, exactly what Hayes said. And this person said, maybe I'm a part of the problem. Maybe I'm just complacent. And that's exactly what we need to get rid of. So I completely agree. So look, no one's the perfect solution until they grow into that role. And I hope Kevin's previous experience is going to help propel him quickly. I think it will. And I'm here to be, his biggest supporter and cheerleader. I
Absolutely.
think swimmingly for sure is. So we want to think of this as the turning point. Let's call this the turning point in the sport of swimming, where Kevin gets to come in at this inflection point, this turning point that's going to be a lot of fun. He doesn't carry old baggage and he has a chance to quickly rebuild trust with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's going to be interesting with, again, the Olympics coming up in 3 years. And I know he's going to want to be serious about growing the sport and building partnerships, but it is going to be hard with the Olympics being 3 years away. I mean, can you imagine how hard he's going to be pulled in certain directions? So, I mean, we just hope for the best. I mean, we know he's going to do a good job, but I can't imagine what that would be like, coming into this role 3 years out of the biggest Olympics we're going to have in a very long time and trying to focus on growing the sport.
That's it. We'll be watching. I know we'll be talking about it.
Yeah. So next week, we'll be diving into something a little more fun, but just as important, the case for more swim meets. How can we get teams, clubs, people running more swim meets, and why they should be fun again? We are super pumped about that conversation.
Absolutely. I think with Kevin coming in, Kevin Ring, new USA Swimming CEO, I think we'll always remember September 2025 as the turning point. Hopefully it's going to be the turning point for the sport of swimming. Until then, till next time, let's have fun. Let's keep it going swimmingly.
Let's
See
go.
you guys.
See ya.